he gets hurt, and you're looking around like, oh no, like, what's going to happen at wide receiver now? And you get your fifth round rookie hurt, and you're now worried about what the wide receiver plan is. And then Xavier Worthy goes down and hurts his surgically repaired shoulder. He got a little bit of a shoulder sprain going on. And then you're looking at your starting wide receivers and the first day of padded practices being Andrew Armstrong and Jalen Royals and Tyquan Thornton. One of those guys you want to be a starter, but the other two, you're like, who?
All right, what is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to Cyclone Kingdom over here on YouTube. I am pleased to be joined by KCSN Zone, Tucker Franklin. Tucker, thanks for coming on the show today.
Hey, Jay, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate you. I'm glad to come on, talk some Chiefs whenever I can. You know, it's something I'm going to be talking about anyway, so might as well do it on a show or something, you know?
I love it. Well, as we talked about off camera a little bit, I have become very fond of KCSN, everything you guys have been doing over there. You guys have become some of my, distant friends, I feel like. I don't got many Chiefs friends, which is kind of sad. I feel like all my NFL friends cheer for other teams. You guys have kind of become my Chiefs brotherhood via YouTube, so I appreciate you guys.
Good. No, that's what we're here for. That's really what we want to be and what we strive to be is just we're all in the end we're all just guys talking football, and that's kind of what we strive our content to be. We don't want to seem like that we are talking at people. We want to talk with people, and that's kind of the big thing, kind of our philosophy at KCSN of kind of how we've done things. And I think that it shows through in a lot of these different aspects, and I appreciate you saying that. And just we're always here. If people want to talk about Chiefs, we are always here. All year round, too. We don't take a break during the summer. Don't take a break during any of the draft stuff. It is all year round for us at KCSN.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, speaking of which, we are in the middle of training camp. First day of padded practices just ended as we're recording this now. So curious to get your take on what you've seen from training camp over the past week, the first day of padded practices today, some highlights, some takeaways that you have, and maybe some hot takes of some guys that you're seeing some stuff from.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton to talk about here, really, when you look at training camp. I talked about this a little bit on That Football Show, a podcast I host with Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated. It comes out Mondays and Fridays. On our Monday edition, which came out just before the first day of padded practice, right? So we recorded Sunday night, came out that Monday morning just before it. Matt had asked me a question about, how do you feel about camp so far? And a lot of times it's hard to necessarily form your feelings on some padded practices or pajama practices, as I like to call them, right? They're wearing T-shirts and shorts and helmets out there. So it's a lot of times hard to truly form opinions about a camp. But a lot of times, we saw some injuries arise. We saw maybe some unexpected battles. We saw a guy outperforming where they were drafted or where they were selected. So there's always going to be those things, those stories to talk about. But in all, I think by the end of the pajama practice portion of camp, I kind of thought they are who we thought they were. And maybe that's because I am just so close and so locked into everything that this team does. It maybe is unfair for me to say that, but Cyrus Allen has a great camp. We thought that Cyrus Allen could be a really good addition, maybe not necessarily up to the addition that he had been thus far in camp. Yep. And he gets hurt. Unfortunately, doing special teams, not a huge shock that he's doing special teams as a fifth-round rookie. That's going to happen. I understand that. I get that. But he gets hurt, and you're looking around like, oh, no. What's going to happen at wide receiver now? You get your fifth-round rookie hurt, and you're now worried about what the wide receiver plan is. And then Xavier Worthy goes down and hurts his surgically repaired shoulder. He got a little bit of a shoulder sprain going on. And then you're looking at your starting wide receivers and the first day of padded practices being Andrew Armstrong and Jalen Royals and Tyquan Thornton. One of those guys you want to be a starter, but the other two, you're like, who? You're having to Google who the Andrew Armstrong is. His second year in his league. He's played with the Lions for a little bit, came over to the Chiefs last year on the practice squad. A little Tyquan Thornton-ish his kind of path to the Chiefs. But I think that there's a lot of things that we are seeing become an issue for this team that you could have seen become an issue in May. Right? A lot of the things that we kind of foresaw and we have talked about a lot during the offseason of hey, man, this wide receiver room's not that deep. Any of these guys get kind of banged up. It's going to be tough. And you're seeing that already early in camp. one of the big things I do want to talk about, I want to talk about a positive thing. I don't want to be all doomsday on you, right, AJ? So I don't want to be just like so fear mongering here. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I do think it's really good to see Khalil Benson go out there, undrafted guy from Indiana, go out there and make kind of some noise, I guess. Taking the first reps at first team, at right tackle. That's not nothing. I think it's something to certainly keep your eye on. But overall, when you look at how the camp has gone, one padded practice into the books, I think that's kind of to be expected what we've seen from this team so far.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you mentioned the Cyrus Allen thing. That definitely hit the social media waves in one way or another when that happened. I definitely have my take on it. I was, I guess, nonetheless pleased that he was a gunner on a punt. I think if he was a punt returner or, returning different kicks or things like that, then it's a little bit different conversation because you're actually using his talent. When you're a gunner on a punt, it's like, okay, what was he doing there? But to your point, he's a 5th-round rookie. He still has to kind of prove himself. My whole take on it was because of what he had done thus far, and to your point about the wide receiver room, I was a little shocked when I heard that he got injured being a gunner on a punt. Like, why is he there when you already don't have a deep wide receiver room as it is? 100%. That kind of goes to my next question about what you think the Chiefs' coaching staff and how they're handling training camp. We know Andy Reid's been known to have a very tough training camp, a very great training camp because of that. But I'm kind of noticing and kind of wondering if you agree with this, the old-fashioned, old kind of way of, or methods of how the Chiefs run training camp. Is that something that needs to change soon? Is that something where you think Dave Toub, Andy Reid, they need to adjust? How do you kind of see all of that when you see something like Cyrus Allen getting hurt like that?
Yeah, it's interesting because injuries are so random, right, too. You can't really predict when they're going to happen and everything like that. And him running into Kaiir Elam is it's a bummer, right, for him being a gunner. But, like, again, I understand both sides of the argument very clearly. Like, I get both sides of it being like, yeah, hey, he's your 4th wide receiver right now in a thin wide receiver room. I understand he's a 5th-round rookie, but you should probably have a couple UDFAs about be out there running gunner. Like, I get that 100%. But I also understand, like, he's also a 5th-round rookie. Yeah, he might be important to the offense right now, but rookies just run on special teams. That's just what you do. That's just what happens. Yeah. And again, that kind of comes to your point of just like, hey, if that's what things are, if that's what you do, should we change what we do? And I think that's something that I've been thinking about probably a little bit more recently, too, with Andy Reid, and I think this is a big year for Andy Reid when it comes down to just his adaptability. He used to be so good at being able to adjust and change the way his offense was and change the way just the whole team was, really, in mid-season and be able to, like, his off-bye week record. His off-bye week record used to be immaculate. Now, it's kind of a little bit more up in the air. Halftime adjustments always used to be so good, and I haven't gone back and looked at this, but anecdotally, it seems like that after the half, they rarely seem to score touchdowns. So it's one of those things that I think that maybe I don't want to say necessarily the game's passed him up, but I think it's certainly catching him up to Andy Reid when it comes down to the way that things are. And you look at a lot of training camps around the league, teams don't go anywhere now. Like, Chiefs are like one of, I think, 6 teams in the NFL that actually go somewhere for their training camp, and they don't do any joint practices. Joint practices are now starting to become a commonplace thing for NFL teams, but now they don't do any joint practices. And that's kind of somehow how you can get some live reps against guys that aren't your own a little bit. It's a way to get more game reps in. And something that the Chiefs have never done because Andy Reid believes they do more harm than good at this point with all the fights and everything that happens with it. I get it. I understand. But there's got to be something. I think this is a big year for Andy Reid to show adaptability. It's going to be a big year for him to be able to show, yeah, hey, look, I did used to always do things this way, but I can do them this way now, and they can still be successful, whether that's offense, whether that's running the team, whatever that is. It's a big year for that. And I'm going to be really interested to see kind of how that happens. I don't know if we've seen any signs of that so far, but we'll see as the year goes on. We're still very early.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you made a great point. And Andy Reid, it's a prove-it year. It really is. Yeah. And as much as we don't want to have to admit that, I was talking about this last week on our show, just the way the Eagles' tenure ended with him and how it just kind of fell off a cliff. I don't want that to happen, but I'm worried that history is a good teacher with that kind of stuff. And so I'm very curious to see how he responds this year. Before we move on, because there's much else much more to get to with the Chiefs. From the wide receiver room standpoint,
Yep.
as soon as that Cyrus Allen injury happened, you heard the chirping once again. Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill. Do you think the Chiefs do anything as we sit here basically now a month and change away from week 1?
It's very interesting, AJ. I'm glad that you brought this up because I guess I kind of want to answer your question by asking you a question.
Yeah.
When Cyrus Allen went down, how much better would you have felt if they did have Stephon Diggs on the roster?
A little bit better.
Yeah. There's a guy who's actually played wide receiver. He had 1,000 yards last year. I know there's a lot of questions about Stephon Diggs' character. I don't know if the Chiefs necessarily draw a line at that. We've seen the way they build teams. They're not necessarily building a bunch of Boy Scouts out here. They're out here trying to win games, and they've proven that they can win games with what they got. But I will say, Stephon Diggs would make me feel a lot better in this wide receiver room, knowing that there's a guy who has been there and has done the wide receiver thing at a high level. I know that we make a whole lot about like, oh, the system. He's a good enough wide receiver where I don't think you have to worry about him trying to learn the system and it being slow to learn the system. He's in training camp right now too, so if he comes in, that is being force-fed the system, right? So he should be good to go by week 1. Maybe Stephon Diggs doesn't want to go to training camp in St. Joe. I don't know if I'd necessarily blame him. I don't know if I'd want to do that either if I was Stephon Diggs, and I've made a bunch of money in my life, and I've done a lot of things in my life too, so I don't know if I necessarily need to check St. Joe off the box. There's a couple of things in terms of wide receiver that I find really interesting. You look at what happened with the San Francisco 49ers. Ricky Pearsall, torn ligament in his knee. He's out for the season. They immediately made a move. Now, their move made a little bit more logical sense with Deebo Samuel being out there, knowing the system, being in the system, everything. It kind of was a perfect fit for them, right? But they didn't hesitate. They went ahead and made that move for Deebo Samuel. The Chiefs have had this wide receiver issue for a while, and they haven't really done anything. What they did this offseason was they re-signed Tyquan Thornton, which is not really an addition. That is legitimately staying the same. And the only addition they made was with wide receiver coach Chad O'Shea. And I know that it's probably a good thing that they brought in a legit wide receiver coach who's had experience at championship-level teams, coaching wide receivers, developing wide receivers. That's great. I think that is a great addition. But that shouldn't have been the only addition that they made. Looking around this wide receiver room, it's been relatively unchanged since last year. I mean, you lose Juju, you lose Hollywood. They go to other teams. Who knows? They'll probably be back for a future 6th-round pick at the trade deadline. Who knows? But McCole Hardman's with the Buffalo Bills. Sky Moore, I think, is on the Packers. I'd have to double check that. I think he's on the practice squad for the Packers. Try to say that 5 times fast. Right now. But there's a lot of things right now up in the air where they just kind of, it seems like they've drugged their feet, right? And I think that's what's the frustrating part is. It's not like they have an owner who doesn't have a lot of money. I think that's kind of the part of it. It is a sport that has a salary cap. Yes, that is true. The Chiefs have plenty of ways to make salary cap space. Don't get it twisted. They've got plenty of ways to do it, whether it's restructure of Creed without an extension, just restructuring Creed, which he does not have to approve, by the way. The team can just restructure that contract. They can do that. They can, extend him if they want to. If they want to agree to an extension, like they could probably move a lot more money that way. If they're just like, all right, let's go ahead and get you extended, move some money to the back end of that deal, they can make a lot of room to make some moves. But I think it's the fact for me that I don't want to say they've ignored the position, but they haven't seemed urgent. The sense of urgency towards the wide receiver position has been something that is alarming to me because of what we've seen in the past with different quarterbacks. Now, I'm not comparing Patrick Mahomes to these guys or Patrick Mahomes to these situations, but this is just like similar situations, right? Aaron Rodgers got really fed up with the Green Bay Packers because they wouldn't give him a high-end wide receiver.
Right.
Same thing with Brett Favre. Brett Favre did the same thing where he was like kind of getting a little upset with the Packers because they wouldn't give him a legit weapon. And I think Travis Kelce has masked a little bit of that frustration for a while for Patrick because he does still have that safety, that security blanket, that crutch with Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's 37 years old. He probably shouldn't have come back this year. I'm glad he did. I like watching Travis Kelce play football. I'm excited for another year of Travis Kelce football. Brother did not need to go back out there on the field. He just married a billionaire superstar. He does not need to do that. So, right. Love of the game. Shout out Travis Kelce for it, right? I mean, I'm glad for him. I'm happy for him. He does not need to be in St. Joe right now. But the fact that they haven't been like, all right, you know what? We saw the Buffalo Bills do this. They traded for DJ Moore, right? Brian Thomas Jr., he's out there. If Chiefs would go out, trade for Brian Thomas Jr., I'd feel a little bit better. It's the lack of urgency with the wide receiver room that I think is so frustrating to me in this regard. And it's a position where they've gotten by. They really have. They've gotten by with doing kind of the bare minimum, and that's because of Patrick Mahomes. But that shouldn't be the standard of what you expect your offense to be. Oh, Patrick Mahomes can just go out and do this all the time. That's putting so much burden on Patrick Mahomes. You can make it easy on him. It's not going to hurt him. It's not going to hurt his legacy if you give him a really good wide receiver, right? It hasn't. He had Tyreek Hill. He had Travis Kelce, and it's not hurting his legacy right now. So that's the thing that I think is a little so frustrating to me. It's not even like about the high-end wide receiver, like the Jamar Chase or the Justin Jefferson. It's not about that. It's about a guy who has been consistently out there because Stephon Diggs is out there. This wide receiver free agent class wasn't actually like the most star-studded either. A lot of them re-signed with their teams that they were at originally. So it's not even like they did moves that they should have done, right? That they didn't do them. But I think that eventually they're going to have to try to say like, okay, let's actually make a big investment. And they tried, to be fair, with Rashee Rice. It's a second-round pick. And Xavier Worthy, that's a first-round pick, right? Like those are two guys that are pretty high-value draft picks, but they just haven't worked out. But you have to be able to pivot from those things that don't work out, those investments that don't work out. And I think that's what a little bit is frustrating when it comes to the wide receiver position, because it's like it seems like the same song and dance and the same problem, and then there's like, oh, I guess we can't fix this. And that's, I think, what is a little bit frustrating with the wide receiver spot.
Yeah. No, I we're going to talk about it in a little bit because you just did a phenomenal piece on the 2023 Chiefs, but I wonder if based on that season, the Brett Veaches, the Mark Donovans, the Clark Hunts were just like, well, we've done it with less, so we might as well just kind of trust. It's not, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And I think just we're in a very dire spot if the Chiefs wide receiver room is going to be, a 250-pound biscuit away Rashee Rice and, whatever else we have going on over there in the wide receiver room. And then, a fifth round pick wide receiver that is making great plays, going through 3 days, and just like, yeah, throw him at Gunner and see what happens. Yeah. So just, it's mind numbing. It really is. But we sit here in August, been asking a lot of different people this we've had on the show. Obviously, we're in the middle of training camp. It's a little bit different because of injuries that are now climbing. Right. But if you were to kind of look at the Chiefs this season and their games and when the bye week is, which we talked about a lot when the schedule came out, how do you kind of predict this season going? Do you see a deep run happening? Where do you sit on August 3rd of the 2026-27 Chiefs?
It's such a good question. And I think that they're going to benefit from playing in a conference that is frankly not good, right? And the AFC is not as good as the NFC is. So they could not win their division and maybe even be the third place team in their division and still potentially get a playoff spot, right? I'm not saying that they'll be the third place team, but like that's a reality. They could be, and they could still get in. That can happen. I think their schedule early on is set up for them to be able to kind of weather a storm. Now you get the Broncos early on Monday Night Football. That's going to be a good matchup. I think that's going to be a good game. We'll see how the Broncos defense is. We're going to get a real test of how that Chiefs offense is early on. So I think that'll be a good one. It'd be huge to win that one, especially that being a home game, your home game of the divisional split. Then you get the Colts, Dolphins, and Raiders, which you should win all three of those. Those should be three easy games. And it takes you right into your bye week at week 5, which I don't even know if they should allow teams to take a bye week that early. This is like a MLB opening day. There's like, all right, opening day is here. We're gonna play all these baseball games. Get ready to play all these baseball games. Baseball is back. By the way, we're not playing tomorrow. Like that's kind of like what it kind of feels like with this so early bye week. And then they do have that tough stretch with Seahawks, Broncos, and then they get the funny Jets, Falcons, Cardinals trio, and then they hit that hard stretch of all 3 road games of Bills, Rams, Bengals, and then home against the Patriots on Monday Night Football. That stretch is going to be interesting because that team should be, by December, you're playing real football at that point. Like, that's real football. You should be at your, not peak, but you should be ascending quickly, right? Like, you should be very well ascending. The Rams are going to be a really good team. The Bills, I think that you should be able to beat the Bills. I'm not impressed by the Bills roster, but they've at least addressed wide receiver. They've done that. So, I mean, they've done the bare minimum. and they're changing defensive schemes in Buffalo, and I don't know if they necessarily have the right personnel for their defensive scheme that they want to flip to, which is going to be really interesting. I've been kind of keeping an eye on Buffalo's defense because with their new defensive coordinator that they have with Jim Leonard, he runs a 3-4, and they have been, for the last few years, have had a 4-3, and those defensive ends
was still a thing.
Yeah, those defensive ends that run a 4-3 are not the same that run a 3-4, and so they've had to cut a lot of guys. They've had to try to add in a lot of guys. It's going to be interesting.
I didn't know Bruce Smith came back to the Bills to run the 3-4 for him.
Dude, it's actually insane with how they're shifting schemes, and like no one's really talking about that. But that one's going to be an interesting one to watch. But in all, like I think that this team has, when we talk about the wide receiver room, I think that you talk a little bit. I tend to probably lean a little bit more towards the floor just because maybe I just have a more pessimistic outlook on things because I don't want to get myself hurt, right? It's more of it's out of a necessity of like I don't want to expect a bunch and then just get my heart absolutely ripped out, right? I'd rather expect low and have them outperform that, and it makes me feel a little bit better.
Sure.
I think that the parity, just the parity of how this team can be is insane. Just like how, like they could have guys completely outperform if their first round picks of Mansour Delane, Peter Woods, if R. Mason Thomas is really good, hell, if Khalil Benson comes out there and plays really well, like they've got so many really good things going for them with that rookie class, and I think they could probably win 10 to 12 games, right? Like I think they could probably get up to that point where they're winning the division. Yeah. There's also another world where they're just not, right? Like nothing really goes their way. Injuries happen. They kind of stack up. And that's what scares me. The things not going their way. It seems like right now they're putting a lot of eggs in the basket of if, right? Like they're banking on a lot of guys doing things that they've never done before. That always kind of worries me. That always kind of gives me reason to pause. I don't think that they'll be like, I still think they'll make the playoffs. I really do. I think that this team has plenty to make the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes, I think, is good enough to make the playoffs and drag this team to the playoffs. Yeah. But I just, the variance of this team is so wild to me, just from top to bottom of like where they could be. I still think that the schedule gives them the flexibility to win enough games to make a playoff, even win the division too, really, if they have to, because the Denver Broncos schedule, brutal. Chargers schedule, brutal. The Chiefs probably have one of the easier schedules in the conference. That's what you get for finishing third, right? But I think that it's one of those ways that they can take advantage of it, especially early on.
Yeah, no, I agree. You got Patrick Mahomes, you always got a puncher's chance, but
exactly. I'm not going to bet against him. Yeah, I'm not going to bet against the man. That dude's insane. He's out there after tearing an ACL. He is out there with no leg brace on the first day of practice, out here slinging it around, running. Now, this was before Paz came on, but he was running the speed option, keeping it, juking around. Oh, yeah. Like, dude, like, how am I going to bet against that guy? I will never bet against that guy for the rest of my life. If Patrick Mahomes doesn't have any defenders, that means I'm dead because I'm always going to defend that dude no matter what. No matter what. I don't care.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that they have a puncher's chance to make the playoffs. I totally agree with you. I think the AFC is nowhere close where the NFC is. Yeah. And all you got to do is get in the field. And what we're about to talk about next with this 2023 team and being able to take a look back at it. I mean, you think about 2026 and you're just like, well, anything's possible when you got 15 and you got Andy Reid and Travis Kelce coming back. So let's transition into that because I want to give you a shout out. I don't want to, puff you up too much, but you did an awesome job on this 2022, 2023 little documentary, if you will. I'm a big 30 for 30 guy. And so when I watch 30 for 30s, I always love the kind of feel of the moment in time plays and stuff. And that's exactly what it felt like. Walk me through first what it was like to go through this season all over again, because I forgot some of the losses where it was like, that happened the year we won the Super Bowl. Like they ruined Christmas the year they won the Super Bowl. So I'll give a couple different observations from living through that season myself as a Chiefs fan. But first, walk me through your process of going through that season and making that video.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, man. It really does mean a lot. I spent a lot of time on that video, and there got to a point probably about midway through where I was like, are people even going to watch this? Are people even going to care about this season? We're about to start a new season. Are people even going to care about the 2023 season? Yeah. And they do. I mean, it's a season that might be the craziest straight-up NFL season in a long time. I think last year's NFL season is going to be one where we're going to look back and be like, wait, what happened? Sam Darnold won a Super Bowl? Like, I think that's kind of what we'll look back and be like, that one was kind of weird. Yeah. But the 2023 season itself was so just crazy. When I started this video, I kind of talk about this at the beginning of the project, where I was originally just going to talk about the 4 playoff games because I was like, the Dolphins game, that's crazy. Coldest game in Arrowhead, that's weird in itself. Then they go on the road for the first ever Patrick Mahomes road playoff game. They play Buffalo. Of course, it was against Buffalo. Then they beat Buffalo, right? And then they got to go on the road for the AFC Championship game, and then they beat the Ravens at their own game, essentially. Like they just kind of bully the Ravens, and the defense plays phenomenal. Then they go in the Super Bowl and they win the Super Bowl, and it's just like that's a crazy story. And even on beating the Niners, who they did beat in Super Bowl 54, their first Super Bowl, it happening in Vegas in the Raiders stadium, where now still the Chiefs have more playoff wins in that stadium than the Vegas Raiders do, which is insane to think about. Yeah. It's just starting there. I was like, man, this is crazy. And then I started writing the script a little bit, starting to lay it out, and I was like, I can't just start at the divisional game. Like, you got to understand like how this team got like, wow, you're at a wild card game. How did the Chiefs get into a wild card spot?
They made the playoffs, yeah.
Right. Like they got into a wild. Like, they don't usually. If the Chiefs were in the playoffs, they were hosting the AFC Championship game, right? Now, how did they get to not hosting the AFC Championship game? I was like, well, I should probably go back and kind of explain the season, right? And first, it wasn't going to be like that long of a. Maybe a little bit of a prelude, right? Of just like, oh, this is kind of what happened. They had this record and these things happened. And then I started to like look at these box scores and look at these games. And I was like, what happened? And like, I remember I was working, like I was doing this. I was covering the Chiefs. I was watching all these games, and I just was going back and watching and like looking at the box scores and being like, I don't remember that happening. And then, so I was like, okay, I'll start with like week 1, and then I'll just kind of do like a quick summary of every game, which I ended up doing, a quick summary of every game, kind of like hitting the high bullet points there. But then I was like, got to week 1, and I realized, oh, that's the game that Chris Jones held out of. I was like, oh, well, I got to go back to him holding out. And then I was going back to him holding out, and obviously Travis Kelce getting hurt just like 2 days before that game.
Yeah.
And him not playing in that game. And then then Rashee Rice had a big game, and I was like, well, I've got to talk about the draft being in Kansas City that offseason after they won the Super Bowl. And one thing that I didn't mention, and I really wish I did mention this, there was 31 picks in the first round of that draft, AJ. Very rare for there to be 31 picks in the first round of a draft. The Miami Dolphins lost their first-round pick that year for tampering with Tom Brady, a player that they did not get.
I totally forgot about that.
It's one of the details I wish I would have mentioned, that they picked Felix Anudike-Uzomah 31st overall, not with like the last pick in the first. I think I said last pick in the first round. I should have mentioned 31st. Oh yeah, why they have 31? Because the Dolphins tampered with Tom Brady, who they didn't get. Yeah. So that in itself. So I just kept like finding myself working backwards and being like, well, I got to talk about this whole season. Yeah. After winning a Super Bowl, right? Because they won a Super Bowl the year prior, and we're going all over this. And I tried to, like, what the longest process was is I would go through a lot of our old shows too and just try to put myself and get the feeling of how things were at the time, right? Because it's easy to look at a box score and be like, okay, well, they won 17-7, but you forget that like let's think of the Vikings. I think the Chiefs ended up winning by 7 there, right? And if you look at the box score, it doesn't really look like there was like much, right? The Chiefs scored. I mean, to put it up, they cut a 2-score lead kind of at the end of the game. You look at that box score, you're like, okay, that's a 1-score game. Probably nothing happened. But you go back and watch that game. The Vikings had a chance to win the game twice, right? Like they had a chance to tie the game twice. Mike Dana ends it with a sack. Then you get a incompletion from Kirk Cousins on a play that they didn't call pass interference on. So like there's so many like nuanced things in there. Travis Kelce had that non-contact injury. We all thought like his knee was gone or his Achilles blew out, and then nothing happened, right? So like there's so many like very small things that I think you miss out on if I didn't go through there and watch like some of the post-game shows we had or some of the shows leading up into it. And there's going to be some of those small details that I missed that I think were so important to telling the story at the time, and even putting some clips in there from our shows I think was so important to be like, hey, this is what people were saying. Like this is what people. It's so easy to have revisionist history, especially with that Super Bowl, because people will be like, well, yeah, Patrick. Well, of course they were going to win the Super Bowl because Patrick Mahomes. we did not think that. That was not a thing that was going on, that the Chiefs were going to win the Super Bowl. So I thought that was really important to include all of that, and I really do. I've been very happy, I guess, it's, for lack of a better word. It seems like a little bit too basic of a word, with how people have enjoyed that video. And it's something that I obviously spent a lot of time on, a lot of research, a lot of time editing. That a 50-minute long video. People sat down, watched, and I've heard people have watched it multiple times, and it's incredibly touching. I appreciate all the kind words too, man. I mean, it's one of those projects where now it feels like I got to do it for every Super Bowl year, right? Now it feels like I got to go back and do it for everyone.
Come on. Well, the 2023 season, I've heard a lot of people describe it as the favorite Super Bowl victory of the Chiefs, which one is fun to talk about because some teams have never even been to multiple Super Bowls. So the fact that we've been to multiple is fun in of itself. But exactly what you just mentioned is why a lot of people, including myself, think that it is the best Super Bowl victory because of everything that happened. I mean, just watching that video, I remember experiencing those things, but you forget that they happened until you actually watch the video and watch the documentary and be like, they lost to the Raiders in Arrowhead on Christmas. Like I was sitting down with my family watching this game. They don't have a team that they follow closely. My brother's a Broncos fan, so he's laughing his head off. And I'm just like, what is going on? This team had been rolling off victories at that point. Like it just, like there's no way this team's winning the Super Bowl. And then a couple months later, you're hosting a trophy. It's unbelievable.
It really is. And that Raiders game in particular was so, I remember feeling just so like this team's not even making the playoffs.
I mean, it was back-to-back defensive touchdowns on two snaps.
I mean, that was the craziest of it all. I mean, it was quite literally the craziest. I mean, I had a lot of people too reach out and tell me that they're like, I forgot that the Bills' whole Sean McDermott 9/11 rally speech was also that week leading into the Chiefs game. They're not outside of the Chiefs. It was a bizarre season. It was crazy all around.
It was wild.
The Bills were 6-6 going into the matchup with the Chiefs. Like that matchup, their regular season matchup was one of the least hyped regular season matchups that they have ever had. Yeah. I was trying to research, find articles about it. I couldn't find anything on that matchup. You go to YouTube, try to find highlights for it. It's just I guess this game happened. That's kind of what you're getting, but you're not getting any of here's the full game of this one, because you get that sometimes from the NFL. Right. They're not posting that game. It was a weird one. It was just a weird season. I'm glad that I could. And I think too, we're far enough away, and maybe the way that the season ended with the Chiefs last year maybe kind of helps us a little bit, right, for us to be able to look back and kind of appreciate that a little bit more. It probably doesn't hit the same if I do it after, them losing the 3-peat Super Bowl, right? Like if I do that and that video comes out, you're just like, okay, thanks, I guess. Thanks for this. We know that just happened. Or if I do it the season after comes out, it's not the same, right? It's not the America's game, because that's the other part. It's I didn't want to America's game it to where it was this is what happened on the football field. I think it was really important to mention everything off the field that happened as well in that season, and just kind of give it a whole snapshot of just the entire year. But no, man, it was fun to put together. It was one of the things where I had fun doing it, so it feels good that other people also liked it, right? So, and that's you're a guy who creates content, so it's always easy to try to find yourself thinking, what are people going to like? Right. But then doing something that you like and other people like too is very rewarding, and it was very fulfilling. And I can't thank people enough for watching it, man. It is probably my piece de resistance right now, right? It makes me feel good. Makes me feel good. Thanks.
I love it. Well, the final question we've been asking other Chiefs fans, from a Chiefs fan's perspective, is your hottest NFL take going into the season that's non-Chiefs related. So I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but what is one thing going into this season that people are going to look back and be like, Tucker nailed it?
Oh, okay. I know exactly what I'm going to say. I think we're going to quickly see that Bo Nix is a fraud.
Talk to him.
I think that Bo Nix is not a good quarterback. I'm going to say that nicely. I don't understand why people look at him and want him to be a good quarterback. I want the Broncos to pay him $60 million a year. I would really love that if the Broncos did that. I think they should go ahead and do that. If they're listening to this, Sean Payton, go ahead and pay him $60 million a year. Please do that. There's something that breaks my brain when it comes to Bo Nix, and I don't understand. And I think a lot of it comes from like box score watching and box score analysts will like look at his numbers, which like by the way are not good,
No,
and they'll be like, well, look at his numbers, look at his counting numbers here, look at his numbers. I mean, the dude throws 600 times a year and doesn't have 4,000 yards. Like what? I don't understand how you can watch him play football and be like, that's a good quarterback. He's barely top 20 for me, and that's just because I didn't want to put Kyler Murray over him.
Wow.
Like that's the realm that I hold Bo Nix. And I think we're going to see with the Broncos a little bit too. I still think their defense is going to be good. We're going to see a disgusting regression just because of how much luck they had last year. Kind of like the 2025 Chiefs. No, 2024 Chiefs.
Yep.
They had just had an insane close game luck, just like the Broncos in 2025 did. And the regression smacked the Chiefs in the face in 2025 from 2024. I think you're going to see the regression smack the Raiders not the Raiders. Well, it already has smacked them in the face. You're not going to see the Broncos in the face harder than I think it smacked the Chiefs because their schedule, as I mentioned, dude, their schedule early on is brutal. Like they get the Chiefs, they go on the road to the Chiefs, right? Then they host Jacksonville. Then they have Rams, Niners, at Chargers, hosting the Seahawks, Cardinals, then the Chiefs again, and then the Panthers, and then their bye week. But like early on, you're talking about Rams, Niners, Chargers, Seahawks. Like they are going to go through it early, and especially if Bo Nix isn't like healthy, I'm going to say in all caps, even if he is healthy, it's kind of questionable. They're going to have to rely on him to win games, and he cannot do that. Bo Nix cannot win you football games. A lot of the times, they were winning in spite of Bo Nix, not instead of because of Bo Nix, and I think we'll see that this year.
Come on. I cannot agree with you more about that. When you are a part of a game that is considered the worst statistical NFL game since the 70s, which is what was it Raiders Broncos or Jets Broncos, one of those games? I mean, you cannot be in a conversation as a top 5 quarterback or in any part of those discussions. It does not exist. It does not exist. But
that's one top. Bo Nix is one thing that fires me up, man. I've gotten in a lot of trouble. I'll be honest. Online, I've said some things about Bo Nix that have been put out there by the KCSN account and my account included that have gotten me in trouble about Bo Nix. Broncos fans like to remind me. I think one of my most watched videos, thank you to Broncos fans, I guess, is about Bo Nix and me just kind of dunking on Bo Nix. And it was after obviously the Chiefs would then go on to lose to Bo Nix, but we don't need to talk about that. But Bo Nix about got outplayed by Chris Oladokin. I don't want to hear him.
I was there for that game. That was my first ever Chiefs game, and I'm like, so quick story, real quick, because I know we got to get going. Quick story.
Go for it.
My first, so we're going to Chiefs 49ers this year, and the reason why we had to go back is my wife buys these tickets for me as a Christmas present months beforehand.
Sure.
She bought them the week of the Colts game, which the Chiefs barely won. As everyone has famously described, the Chiefs were trying to lose that game, and Patrick Mahomes was like, over my dead body.
Yeah.
So we get to Thanksgiving, and she gives me this present. Well, it's the day before the Cowboys game. Well, as we know, that was the beginning of the end because the Colts game was the last game the Chiefs won.
Yeah.
We went to the Christmas game. Everything happened, and I remember looking at my lovely wife, and I was like, we have to go back. Like I can't have my first Chiefs game be with Chris Oladukin and Isaiah Pacheco and it can't happen like that. But yeah, I mean they almost beat Bo Nix and the Broncos, and that shows you all you need to know. But Tucker, we appreciate you coming on the show today. You're obviously over at KCSN. Yes, what shows are you on? Where can people find you? Show some love to KCSN right now.
Yeah, you can follow KC Sports Network at KC Sports Network on pretty much everything. I think Instagram's kcsports.network just because somebody already had that handle. That's kind of rude. Myself is at Tucker D. Franklin. That's everywhere. Instagram, Twitter. What else is there? I think I'm on Blue Sky too. You can follow me on Blue Sky if that's your flavor. Gotta get the ball out there, right? But no, we do that football show with Sports Illustrated's Matt Verderam, big time guy over there. Sports Illustrated, Matt Verderam and I talk about the whole league in general, as well as like the Chiefs, because we're both Chiefs guys. We're going to talk about it from a Chiefs perspective, but we do cover the whole entire National Football League as well. So that comes out Mondays and Fridays. We will have a programming announcement that's not out yet that we will be talking about here shortly. So just stay tuned to KC Sports Network. We'll have it plenty. Follow us on YouTube as well, KC Sports Network. That's where everything goes. So everything goes to KC Sports Network. We've also got shows with Nate Taylor of ESPN, Joshua Briscoe, Seth Kaiser, Chief in the North. They all on Only Weird Games, one of our flagship shows, as well with Casey Lapp, Ken Swanson, Craig Stout, and Maddie Lane. Those are our 3 big shows. Me, That Football Show, the Casey Lab, Only Weird Games. All of those will be going up on the podcast platforms, Casey Sports Network, the Chiefs version. We've also got all kinds of college and Royals and everything. We cover everything in Kansas City, right? So you can get it all there. And you can figure it out there. But if you are here for Chief stuff, that's where you go. KC Sports Network. Appreciate you having me, AJ.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure. KCSN does everything you want from a Chiefs perspective. And I'm just kicking myself. It's taking me this long to find you guys. But we appreciate you coming on the show, Tucker. How about those Chiefs? Let's get that bowl back in 2026, baby.
Let's do it.